Hi everyone, welcome back to the second episode of the Floodlight series. My name is Mia, your host of the podcast. And for this episode, we're joined here by Ella. She's our amazing and talented writer and friend. In high school, she published a entrepreneurship workbook called The High School Entrepreneur, a practical guide and workbook for starting an e-commerce business. Welcome, Ella. Welcome to the podcast.
Thank you.
So, as you know, as we see, this is a 145-page workbook. How it's honestly, to me, it's like so impressive that you did this in high school too. Could you please just tell me a little bit about like how you started it, what inspired you to start it?
Yeah, of course. So I guess I've always been interested in entrepreneurship. Kind of like just growing up my entire life, I think I was always exposed more to the business side of things through like both my parents being more in like business professional fields rather than like medical or like journalism, anything in that sense. And so kind of from that just overall upbringing, I always was leaning more towards the business route of things. And then in high school, that's when I really started to become interested in like entrepreneurship and that concept of like being your own boss and doing what you want to do and like kind of creating something out of nothing. And so in that whole process, I knew that I always knew that I wanted to like maybe start my own business, but never like had the motivation or time to do so. But then during my sophomore year of high school back in 2020, COVID hit and I had a lot of time on my hands for like safety reasons. I wasn't able to get like, a conventional like job as like a waiter or anything in that sense. And so I kind of decided like, okay, well, what should I do with all of my like time? And so with all of that, I was talking to my dad and kind of trying to brainstorm like, what should I do with my summer? Like, I don't know what like I could do with like the limitations of like being at home, not being able to like contact many people and like be exposed to a lot of people. And in that, my dad was like, well, you've always been interested in entrepreneurship. Like, maybe you should start your own business. Like, why don't you try that out? And I was like, well, that's really ambitious. Like,
You're like, okay, that's
I'm like,
wow.
Okay, yeah, that is in the idea box. But the more that I was looking into like starting my own business, the more I got excited about the whole process. And so I was fortunate enough where my dad offered me some initial funding to get everything started. And so I basically spent the entire summer building out my own e-commerce business called You, Me, and the Lamppost. And with this business, I was handcrafting high-quality jewelry. And it was mostly beaded jewelry, so not necessarily like using metals, but more like beads. And so in that whole process, I learned a lot. I learned from like website creation to like choosing a product and like knowing how to target your market.
Is the business still running or no?
It is not. Yeah, it really did not get beyond like the friends and family stage of things.
Would you say that was just like a little test run of things?
Yeah, I think more than anything, it was like a test run of things. And I really just wanted to like learn the overall entrepreneurial process of like the things that you need to consider to make a scalable business. And I think that what's nice about e-commerce is that naturally makes a business a little bit more easy to scale. And so I think that's what I really got out of that experience. Definitely not
what would you say? Sorry to interrupt.
Yeah.
But like, what would you say is like the most important lesson you learned from that jewelry business?
I think honestly, probably what I learned the most is like the importance of like, one, like risk taking. I think that I was always just a little uncomfortable and wasn't sure. Like I was never confident enough in an idea. But I think that sometimes you just need to go for it, and sometimes you just need to like try something if it's something that you're really interested in. And it really does take trying it for the first time for you to make mistakes and learn from them, and then really see if this is an area that you want to go into and if this is an area that you're interested in. And then I guess I would say, can you remind me of the question? Sorry.
Oh, what was like the most important lesson that you learned from the jewelry business?
Oh, yeah. Let's see. Okay, I think I kind of forgot my second point, but I would say like the greatest thing is probably like the risk-taking aspect of it. Yeah.
Okay.
Mhm.
Well, I know we kind of just like started talking about jewelry business. That's honestly like so interesting that you had that before writing this book. I see that you like designed the cover as well. I guess like tell me a little bit about it. Well, what's really like the design here?
Yeah. So I guess in terms of just the book in general, I kind of got on a little tangent on the whole business thing, but kind of starting my own business then inspired me to write this book. Again, because my goal in it was more to just understand the overall process. With it, I then learned so much, and I was kind of like, now what do I do with all this knowledge? And from there, I thought to myself, well, it took a lot of intrinsic motivation to get myself to write this book or to start my own business. And it just made me realize like there's probably so many like students and high schoolers out there who have an interest in entrepreneurship but just have no idea where to start, which is kind of an exact position that I was in when I chose to start my jewelry business. And so I then went on to write this book just to help encourage other high schooler students to explore like any interest that they may have in entrepreneurship, and just I guess like dip their toe in the water. I think that it seems like a very intimidating concept, and it seems like when you hear entrepreneurship, a lot of the times you hear about like these big like companies or like these big CEOs of like Elon Musk, or Jeff Bezos, and I think that it at times that can be very discouraging to view entrepreneurship from such a large scale. But I think my goal in this was to really encourage high schoolers to view entrepreneurship in a way that it can be just a small business, and it can be an e-commerce thing, and you can still gain so much out of the experience and make such a big impact on other people through it.
Awesome. What would you say is the hardest thing about writing this book?
Yeah, I would say honestly it's probably all of like the editing and proofreading. When I first like went into writing this book, I definitely thought like, oh, like I gathered all these notes when I was starting my business. Like, let me just like take all these.
I got this.
Yeah, it was like let me take all these notes.
Just like writing.
Exactly, like taking all these notes from my little notebook and then let me just turn it into a book. Like, how hard can it be? And then I got further into the process, and I was like, holy cow, this is definitely a larger undertaking than I thought.
How long did it take you?
It only took me about like 3 to 4 months, which is
oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's definitely a shorter timeline. I like dedicated like my entire summer of junior year, so 2021. Yeah, 2021 towards writing this book. And yeah, I was fortunate enough to get like assistance from like my dad and like family members and friends to help me like proofread it and make sure that it made sense from their perspectives. And I was able to publish it through Kindle Direct Publishing, which definitely knocked out a large part of, I think, like the time that it takes to like publish a book. I think that a lot of time when writing and publishing a book is trying to get a publisher, but I was lucky enough where I could just do it through Kindle Direct Publishing. So
oh, really?
Yeah, now it's just on Amazon.
Wow. Okay.
But yeah.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well, it seems like entrepreneurship runs in your family. How did your dad's business influence your own entrepreneurship spirit in a way?
Yeah, I guess kind of like what I was touching on before. So my dad isn't necessarily in entrepreneurship, but he definitely is like in the business space. And I think that like, during like car rides or when we were watching TV, it was always very like economics focused and business focused and very much along those lines. And I think that just having so much exposure to that area of business then like really naturally led me into viewing that as probably the career path that I wanted to go into. And then I'm sure as many other people, I watched a lot of Shark Tank.
Oh yeah, that show is addicting.
It
I'll
really
say
is.
That. It's like so interesting too, and then like the contestants are so creative with their stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And I think that like that was a huge part of like what got me interested in entrepreneurship, of like kind of how you said like like drawing out the cover and everything, like I do have this like really like strong like creative side that like I want to feed into, and I thought that like entrepreneurship was a really great way to like tie the two together of like creativity along with like business and more, I guess, like technical understanding. Yeah.
This is like I was like thinking about this since we talked about Shark Tank. Do you have a favorite episode?
Oh gosh. I'm trying to think. It has been some time since I've watched Shark Tank.
Yeah, I honestly always see it just like on TikTok. It's like the short clips.
Yeah, I guess I can only like think of like honestly some of like the failed ones.
The failed ones.
Yeah, do you like, have you watched the one where like they created something like a door lock and like they were trying to like prove a point that like
Wait, I feel like I have. Well, not like the entire episode, but I definitely
like
feel like I've seen clips of it. Yeah.
Yeah, and they're like kicking down this door for like 2 minutes, and like it was just funny. But I think in terms of like creativity, an episode that I really liked was probably like I remember there was this older older man. That sounded so weird and formal.
It's okay.
This older man, like he like came in with this idea of like this like magnet and like little like metallic hook that would like connect to like your little shirt pocket, and then like your glasses could like hang from it.
Oh wait, yes.
Have you seen that one?
I know that one.
And I remember just thinking that in particular was really interesting to me because like I think that some of the best like innovations do come out of like the issues that you encounter in your own life, and I just love the idea like he really did create this product just for himself because he like kept losing his glasses, and it was just an easy way to like find them and like keep them like hooked onto his pocket. And like I don't know, I thought that was like really inspiring to like view things in that light of like seeing issues and like I guess
it can always honestly just be like the smallest thing too.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like most people get really distracted by like when they're brainstorming, they're thinking, oh my gosh, I have to solve like the biggest problem in the world right now, and it's honestly it's not like that, you know.
Yeah,
it can be like the simplest thing, but
exactly. Yeah. And like I don't know, I know that the person who created like Post-its, I think like this person like they were just trying to like create like paper that they could stick in like their Bible so like it didn't like tear the sheet, and like now like I mean maybe fact check that before you do anything with that, but like, and now Post-its are what they are, you know, like you never call it like really like a sticky note, like you call it a Post-it no matter what the brand is, and that's a pretty cool thing.
Yeah. Well, I remember earlier you kind of talked about how COVID kind of shifted your passion for entrepreneurship. I don't know if I got that right, but could you like tell me a little bit about it, like what happened in COVID?
Yeah, for sure. I think COVID just like opened a lot of like opportunity to kind of try something new and try something that's not along like the conventional lines of, I guess, like being a high school student in the summer. Like I definitely assumed like if COVID was not a thing, I definitely assumed that I would go into my summer probably working at like an ice cream shop. But COVID really did like open a lot of possibilities to look into these new areas. And so I really kind of made the most out of that opportunity and then dove into entrepreneurship. I guess, yeah, I don't think that like COVID in itself like really changed that much on like my view in entrepreneurship, but I think that it did like open a lot of doors and a lot of time for me to like dedicate towards like exploring that specific area. Yeah.
I guess I'm also just kind of wondering like what are like the takeaways, or I guess again like the lessons you learned working on this book and just everything else during COVID?
So I guess because I started my business and then wrote this book kind of around the same like year, I guess. And I think kind of like my biggest takeaway from those experiences is to not let the perfect be the enemy of the good. Through like the process of starting my own business and then writing this book, it's really easy to get nitpicky, and it's really easy to like try and find just the smallest things to make tweaks about, whether it was what size font to use on the website for my business, or should I add a period or a comma here or there in the book.
Yeah, I felt that.
Yeah, and I feel like if I fixated on these certain things, like I just never would have gone around to doing it. I never would have gone around to publishing my book. It never would have gone around to launching my website. And so I really think that kind of before going into COVID, I would say that I had more of like a perfectionist mindset of I needed everything to be 100% quality. But in those processes, I realized that it wouldn't have been possible. Like I couldn't have fixated on every single aspect. Otherwise, nothing would have happened.
Yeah. What advice would you give? I know this is probably a little bit hard because, you know, sometimes everyone's different, but I guess just in general, what kind of advice would you give to the young people out there who wants to, write their own book or start their own business, like, or I guess something meaningful?
Yeah, I guess like kind of what I was touching on before, like one, I'd recommend like trying just anything that you're really interested in. I think that a lot of the times it's easy to think that money is like a restricting factor for things, but there are a lot of resources out there, and I think that intrinsic motivation can go a really long way in like encouraging you to try new things. And then I think something else along that is when you do become, I guess, very proficient in an area, I think that a big like piece of advice I would give is to like give back to other people and to give back to your community. I think again, like a really big reason why I wrote this book was because I had all of this knowledge now about how to start an e-commerce business from a high schooler perspective, where a lot of books on entrepreneurship that were out there at the time weren't necessarily focused on the high schooler perspective, but more as if you were beyond even like college. And so
like it's like for everyone.
This one specifically for high schoolers.
Sorry, high schoolers.
Yeah.
Literally says... I'm, like, too interested in this, yeah.
You're all good. But, yeah, I think that with it, I just think that kind of use, like, your perspective and use, like, your influence to make an impact on other people and to just share, like, the knowledge that you have. I think that it's such... I don't know, I just think that it really goes a long way in like encouraging other people to follow like their own passions and like share your own knowledge with others. And I think that then that way like other people can like resonate with maybe your experience and just get, again, like motivation to do what they are really truly passionate about. Yeah.
Well, you talked about giving back to the community, and I think that's like so amazing. Personally, I published a children's book myself as well, and my intention was just to, you know, encourage children, because the book was inspired by my own story, my own upbringings, and I kind of just, you know, wanted to encourage children to, I guess, the same thing, like do what they want. So I want to know, like, what happened after you published this book. Were you able to, you know, share with friends, family? What was their reaction even?
Yeah, I was definitely able to share it with friends and family. Everyone was very supportive, very, honestly, similar reaction to yours, of just, I suppose, impressed, especially like, being a high schooler. From there, I was able to like publish it to Amazon, so it's still sitting on there.
What was that process like?
It's honestly so easy.
Yeah.
It's so easy. I just like uploaded like a PDF.
Don't you have to apply or something? Or I guess it's kind of like they have to, I guess, review or approve in a way.
Yeah. So it wasn't necessarily like an application process, but yeah, it was like an approval thing. So I know I just had to create like a login, I guess, or create like an account with them. And then from there, I just uploaded like a PDF of like all of like the text, and then chose like certain factors of like what size I wanted it to be, what like kind of covered I want it to be, like and all those different factors. And then from there, I can't remember the exact time frame, but then like on their side they would review the book, make sure that you're not putting out any concerning content, and then approve it. And then from there, they just published it to their website. So yeah, it's really, there's no cost to me having it there. So yeah.
Well, was it your idea that you wanted to be on wanted it to be on Amazon, or?
I think that I guess it wasn't necessarily like my idea, but it was probably like the easiest way to go about publishing something. It probably would have taken years to find a publisher to back this book, and my goal in it wasn't necessarily to like be like backed by a publisher and like become like a well-known author, but more just to share like my knowledge and understanding. And so more just like putting my just knowledge out there,
just
making it accessible.
Anyone that doesn't know how to start, they can read this.
Exactly.
Well, speaking of you know, being a writer and author, is this something that you see yourself doing in the future, perhaps for, you know, for future ventures? Like, are you still interested in writing books like this? Because I know this is like 4 years ago or a while ago.
Yeah. I'd probably say no. I don't necessarily see like authorship in my future, but I do definitely see like my mission and like intent with writing this book of giving back. Something that I definitely want to carry throughout like the rest of my life. Something that I'm like particularly interested now is like social entrepreneurship, which is like creating solutions to like different environmental and social issues that either like me personally, my community, or like the world faces. And I think that that's kind of how I want to use like entrepreneurship to give back more in these days, I guess, rather than writing another book. Yeah, but
you're just like, I don't want to do this again.
Yeah, I don't even know if I would know where to start again. But I'm glad I did it. Now I can forever say.
Actually, let's be fun. Hypothetically, if you were to write another one, what content would you write it on this time?
I guess, I mean, I think maybe staying in still like the business realm, maybe like in terms of like how to create like a social enterprise, something a little bit more focused on like a specific area of entrepreneurship. I think that like between writing this book and now, I've gained a lot more knowledge, and if I would go back, I would probably scrap everything that I wrote in here and restart. But I think that I've kind of realized that like the process that you go through for through like entrepreneurship is very like specific to like the area that you're going into, whether that's like tech, whether that's healthcare, whether that's again like social impact. And so I think that like writing a book specifically on like social enterprises and how to create them, I think that would be a route that I think would be very interesting to go into, because I feel like I've gained a lot of knowledge in those areas throughout my time in college now.
Would it be another workbook, or do you think?
I think it would be. I do think that in teaching entrepreneurship, the guide and like workbook style of it is the most, I think, efficient way of going about it.
Yeah, especially with, I guess, starting businesses. It's really important for them to actually like write it out themselves. Yeah. Because I do kind of get sometimes when you're just writing a whole book about how you started a business and they're just reading it and they're like, okay, whatever. It's a book. But I think this is actually a really just like an engaging, interactive book with the reader.
For sure. Yeah. And like I think it like holds the reader more accountable to like actually apply like what they're learning. I feel like I've gotten so many random like self-help books for like holidays, and like I feel like I always tell myself I'm gonna apply whatever they told me, but I'm just not. And I think that it really is because there's no actionable step that's really required of you as a reader. And so I do think that having it as like a workbook style is like a way for me to kind of feel more confident that like the reader is getting more out of it than just simply reading it.
For sure. Are there any RSOs on campus that you're a part of that, you know, I guess helped you more with the entrepreneurship? Yeah, I would say I mean the biggest organization that has like, or like the organization that's made like the biggest impact on me in college is probably Illinois Enactus. I got into that organization my first semester of my freshman year, so fall of 2022. And I was lucky enough to hear about the organization from one of my like assigned mentors previous
to actually coming to college.
Is it a organization part of Geese or?
Yeah, it is a part of Geese.
Okay.
But it's really cool because it does draw in a lot of people from different majors. It's pretty much like split like a third and a third and a third of like Geese, Granger, and then other schools such as like FAA, LAS, agriculture. And so I think that's really cool to like get so much exposure to people from all these different types of backgrounds. I feel like I'm not really like siloed into being a business student, and I'm able to like get a lot out of talking to a bunch of people who have different backgrounds and who are getting different educations. But I think that organization, basically Illinois Enactus, it serves as an incubator for its portfolio. The portfolio usually ranges between like 6 to 8 projects. It changes every semester, but every project within the portfolio addresses a different environmental or social issue. And being a part of this organization, I was able to serve as a project manager of one of the projects. And so in that experience, I was really able to see what it's like to kind of like, I guess, manage and function a social enterprise. And
were there a favorite project?
Or? A favorite project? I guess going in, my favorite project is probably Phoenix. Phoenix was addressing textile waste in the Champaign-Urbana community. And after my senior year of high school, I worked for a shoe company as just like a sales ambassador at one of their stores. It's called Rothy's.
Oh, never heard of it.
Yeah,
interesting.
Yeah, but they're turning like recycled water bottles into shoes, and so I think that like really kind of got me into just the whole idea of like using like innovation to like make like a sustainable impact, especially like in like that fashion industry.
That's where like the passion started.
Yeah, so I think that like that's really what like led me and like had me really drawn to like Phoenix, as they were like focusing on like textile waste and like the fashion industry and like making an impact in that general area.
Yeah. Well, speaking of that, has there been like any personal projects that you worked on these years that are, you know, around the fashion and sustainable realm?
Not necessarily. No, it's always something that's kind of been in the back of my mind, and I've always wanted to kind of start my own thing, do my own project, but I've never really come up with anything that I've really wanted to fully pursue. My hope is like going into next semester, I will like focus more on like the creativity side of things. I think I've been very wrapped up in like academics and just that overall like professional side of things, but luckily I think like getting older now, like I guess them being like a second semester junior, I really do want to like tap more into like the passions and the things that like I find a lot of like joy in doing.
Well, do you think like I know that, you know, your dad's and probably like everyone in your family is pretty involved in the entrepreneurship field. Do you think this is something that you wanted to do ever since you were little?
I guess like when I was little, I probably had a very similar dream as most of like becoming like a veterinarian or like becoming an artist and
teacher, like the classics.
Exactly. So I wouldn't necessarily say that I was like young and always thought like, oh my God, like entrepreneurship is exactly what I want to do. But I do think that when I was younger, I was always drawn to like this creative aspect of things, and I was always drawn to like wanting to again like be my own boss and start my own thing and create something out of nothing. And so I think while at the time I didn't really know what entrepreneurship was exactly, it did, I think, kind of naturally like
it just naturally like came to you,
lead me into like this like professional business path. I guess like thinking back to when I was probably I think in third or fourth grade, something like that. My friend and I created a card business.
Wait, tell me about that card business. Like, what kind of card?
Oh, yeah. I mean, definitely, you know, like Pinterest inspired, like, you know, like 2010s looking, like, you know, DIY mom kind of cards. It was nothing like... It was nothing streamlined, nothing very professional in any means. I can kind of imagine it, just the cards. Yeah, just very like corny cards.
That's so cute though. Third and fourth grade. And you already had the idea of kind of just like starting your own like thing?
Yeah, I think the reason why like me and my friend became so close was because we had such like we were both like really into like art and had kind of that artistic side of things, and we kind of thought like, well, like let's do something with this, and why not make money while doing it too?
Did you guys make sales actually?
Yeah, we did. I mean, well, to friends and family again.
Oh, yeah.
But but yeah, I mean, made decent money for a third grader. And I don't know. I really loved that whole process, and I think that it's funny seeing like these things that I did when I was in like I can't remember, third or fourth grade, and like seeing those things I did then and like almost how it translates to now. Like I remember like I was always so excited to go to Michael's, like because they always had so many like coupons, and like that was when like I bought all
Michael's were like the place. They always have like a lot of cute stuffs and always doing like holiday deals.
Exactly, yeah. So many random like stickers and papers and stuff. And so I don't know, I think it's funny thinking about that experience and how much I loved it, and then how it translates to now of like that was like the process of like sourcing materials, and like I don't know, it's funny to see like these things that like I did within that experience, and like how it kind of was like almost a little foreshadowing into like being in like the whole entrepreneurial space.
Yeah. Have there been has there been moments where you kind of doubted this path, or I guess another question I have is, were there ever any judgments that I guess friends or family had about what you were doing?
Yeah, for sure. I would say for the most part, honestly, I've been really lucky that my family has been very like supportive in kind of any career path that I want to go into. I think that the one almost requirement that they've always said is like, no matter what you choose, like put your whole heart into it and put in all of your effort towards it, and kind of, you know, be good at it, you know, like try and be the best in that area. Yeah. And so, but I never felt like I had to specifically go in any route of like being a lawyer, being a doctor, whatever. I know those are very traditional terms, but I never felt that kind of pressure, which I've been fortunate enough. But I do think that it wasn't really until like going to college where I did start to hesitate more going into the whole entrepreneurial field. I think
How so?
Yeah, I think like first would be probably because coming into college, it almost felt like there were a lot of like barriers of entry in a sense to like like I think when I was younger, it was like, oh, like start your own business and like you know, just try your own thing. And I think that you definitely should when you're younger, and I think that like even as a college student you should as well. But I think that in college it really flooded my brain with a lot more considerations, like funding and advising.
There are definitely more doubts.
Exactly.
Like, you know, when you're a kid, you like literally don't think sometimes.
Yeah. There were a lot more considerations that I never thought of about actually being an entrepreneur as like a career until coming to college. And I think that there were just a lot of factors that kind of made me a little bit more, I guess, hesitant to go into the area. And I think something else, again, is that I think that like being at like a Big Ten, like public university, it's very easy to feel a lot of pressure to go into a conventional job route, such as like accounting or finance or consulting. And I think that sometimes you don't always get the most amount of support from your college or your peers to go into.
Is that like your main concern?
I think so, yeah. Of like not getting enough support to like try a like unconventional field, in one that is often viewed as like more risky.
Okay, then I guess what still encourages you to go into entrepreneurship? Yeah,
so I think that for me, like regardless or like despite kind of not always feeling like the most encouraged to go into this area of entrepreneurship, I think that what really does like drive me and make me want to continue exploring entrepreneurship is being able to make an impact and be able to represent people of color and to represent women.
Yeah, definitely.
And I think like, impact both on like, I want to like try and make an impact on the environment through like the social enterprise that I decide to work on. But then I also want to make an impact by being a role model to other people as I mentioned, through like being Chinese and then like being a woman, as like the entrepreneurial field and just kind of business in general is still a pretty male dominated industry and area to go into.
Well, then how do you want to go, like how do you want to, I guess, approach educating others about this?
Yeah, I think that it does take more experience. So I think I want to get some more like industry experience, and then from there, kind of my long-term career goal is to maybe go more into like venture capital, where I'm able to like invest in like startups that are making a social impact. And I think that like from that experience and maybe getting a little bit more backing behind my own name, I would then want to like share my perspective and my knowledge and just again like be a role model for other people, whether that's like doing like a speaker series at universities or doing interviews, being on podcasts, and just like sharing like my experience and who I am and what I've learned. And
I mean, you're already doing this now.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it's really cool to be here right now and share it just as being a college student right now. Yeah.
Well, I guess you kind of answered this, but I guess just like what's next? Like what are you gonna do, I guess, while you're at UIUC now about entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think that from now I'm kind of in my stage of college where I feel more of kind of similar to tracking of my whole life of how I'm kind of going from learning to then sharing with other people, but I want to follow almost a similar trajectory now being in college, where I feel like my first 2 years of college I spent a lot of it absorbing information and learning from the people around me and learning from new experiences. And now being a junior and being, I guess, going into senior year, I want to then make more of a lasting impact on the university, and that's kind of what really drove me to then want to work for iVenture. And then at iVenture, I work as a social impact fellow. And
oh, really?
As that, we're working on co-creating a 3-day startup event as well as a social impact incubator. And
interesting.
Through that whole process, that's kind of what I want to do in continuing entrepreneurship of basically like sharing with other people, again, like my knowledge on like social entrepreneurship and getting them encouraged to go in this route. And yeah, more of that impact piece. So yeah, that's where I kind of see myself going for at least the next few years. And I'm not quite sure beyond that yet.
Okay, well, I actually thought about this just now, but looking back, is there any steps of the journey that you want to change?
I mean, I feel like this is a cliche, but no.
No, it's okay. Like,
I feel like everyone says like I wouldn't change anything, and I really wouldn't. I think that it really did.
I feel that.
It
honestly.
did take, like everything that I've done up until this point to be where I am, like whether that was like from starting that card business to then starting a business in high school, writing this book, joining an RSO, being a part of iVenture. And I think that it really did take each individual like experience in those areas to really be where I am now. And I'm very content and very happy with where I am right now. And so
you're like so amazing, so cool. Oh my gosh.
But yeah, I probably wouldn't go back and change much.
Okay, well, I guess, is there like any final piece of advice you would give to like the listeners, audience out there?
I guess more generally, like maybe like not as like entrepreneurial focused, but I would just say like do what you love and share it with other people, and always, I think at the end of the day, pay it forward and give back to others. Any capacity that you can. Yeah.
Well, that's so amazing. Thank you so much for coming to this podcast, Ella. And like, again, I'm like so amazed still by your book. Maybe you should like honestly like start promoting it again. Like,
you never know. Yeah.
No.
Maybe. Yeah. When I do read back through it, I do cringe a little bit about how some of the things I've said. But
this is like so helpful though. Like hey, like I might grab a copy and I'll like this will be helpful to me. But yeah. So we can like put a link.
Sure.
I know it's like a long time ago, but yeah, definitely go check that out. And yeah, again, thank you so much for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you.